was Thanksgiving, and I was driving through the Texas countryside, heading to a family gathering I wasn't particularly looking forward to. The sun had just set, casting long shadows across the open landscape. My car, an old reliable, but aging vehicle, started to sputter and eventually died on a lonely stretch of road. I cursed under my breath, knowing I was in the middle of nowhere. I stepped out of my car. There was nothing around for miles, just endless fields and the occasional cluster of trees. I checked my phone, no signal. Great. I decided to walk down the road, hoping to find some evidence of civilization. After what felt like hours, I saw a light in the distance. As I got closer, I realized it was coming from an old farmhouse. Relieved, I approached and knocked on the door. It creaked open, revealing a tall man with an odd smile. I explained my situation, and he invited me in. Inside, the house was dimly lit and filled with the smell of something cooking. Two other men, equally unsettling, sat at a table, their eyes following my every move. The tall man asked me to take a seat, still smiling unnaturally. I hesitated but figured it was better than being stranded outside. The men introduced themselves as brothers, but something about their demeanor sent chills down my spine. The food was served, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The brothers exchanged glances and whispered among themselves, their eyes occasionally darting towards me. I tried to make small talk, but their responses were short. Then, one of them stood up and locked the door. The other two got up and started walking towards me. I got up and asked them what was going on. The tall man grabbed me and I threw his arms off of me. I ran up the stairs and they started chasing me. I heard screaming from one of the bedrooms, but I saw a window and smashed it. Then I jumped out. I dived under an old pickup truck and I heard the men running around, looking for me while screaming. I noticed a cornfield and thought I could make it there without them noticing me. I jumped out from under the truck, but my foot banged against the muffler. One of the brothers screamed, "He's over here," so I sprinted into the cornfield. After I dove in, I heard gunshots behind me. Then I heard people running through the cornfield and more gunshots. I just kept sprinting until I couldn't hear anything anymore. When I made it out, I was happy to see a truck passing by. I waved them down and they stopped. He drove me to the police station where I told them my story. I never heard anything about those men again. In the end, I barely escaped alive. The Texas countryside held secrets I never wanted to uncover, and I was lucky to have survived the night.
I live in a remote town in northern Wisconsin. I'm 30 now, but I was 19 when this took place. It was a quiet evening of 2008. Christmas was steady approaching. I was driving home from a long day of work. The radio was mentioning a blizzard hitting our area. I thought I could make it home in time. About 15 minutes later, the snow really picked up. It was so bad I could not see where I was driving. I had to pull over on some street in the middle of nowhere. I was really mad because I was 5 minutes from home. I figured the snow would clear and I would be able to drive again. And 20 minutes later the snow did stop. There now must have been 11 inches of snow on the road plus a layer of ice underneath it. I started the car, but when I tried to drive I realized the wheels were frozen to the ground. I swore under my breath and started to dial the tow company's number. But when I called them it wouldn't work. There was no cell service. Nighttime was approaching and I started to get ready for a night in my car. I spent an hour trying to call my wife, the tow company, and 911, but none of them worked. By this point it was dark outside and I began settling in. That's when I looked out the window and saw footprints walking past my car. They started in front of my car and went to the back. There were multiple prints. I thought it was odd, but nothing to worry about. That was until I heard someone attempting to open my car's back door. I looked out my back window and saw nothing but snow. I was freaked out. I stepped on the gas, but I heard a scraping noise. I got out planning on shoveling my tires out of the snow, but I was horrified by what I saw. My tires were slashed. I couldn't drive anymore. I grabbed the closest thing to a weapon I had, which was my baseball bat, and got back into my car. Then I heard somebody screaming from the woods. After that, rocks were thrown at my car. I thought I was gonna die, but I thought I was going to be saved when the road lit up and headlights showed up from a distance. It was a blue pickup truck. I waved them down and they stopped right in front of my car. A tall man with sunglasses stepped out of the car. I told him I needed help and he asked if he could check it out. I saw him put a knife in his pocket and my stomach dropped when I noticed at least 20 people in the woods staring at me. When the guy got close, he pulled out the knife and charged at me. I grabbed my bat and slammed it into his face. I continued beating him in the head until he stopped moving and the snow was red. I looked to my side and saw the other people in the woods with masks running at me. I smashed the pickup truck's window with my bat and was relieved to see he left the keys in the ignition. I started the car and floated out of there. I heard gunshots behind me and they even hit the car. I sped into town where I called the cops. I then made it home safely. The next week I was called into the police station. They told me that they found my car with a blood-written message that said "come back." They also found the body of the man I hit with my bat. He was killed, but they said they would not charge me due to self-defense. But the last thing they told me terrified me the most. Apparently, I was the victim of a cult, and they had killed 2 other people that same day. To this day, I am still traumatized and hate snow.
I have been hunting for around 12 years. Back when I was a beginner, I had an experience that I will never forget. It almost made me quit. I will start from the beginning. I decided to take my dog, Rex, for a hunting trip deep in the woods. It was a crisp autumn evening, and the forest was eerily silent. As we ventured deeper, the trees seemed to close in on us, their branches like skeletal fingers reaching out from the darkness. The air grew quiet, and a sense of unease settled over me. Rex suddenly stopped, his ears perked up, and he growled low in his throat. I followed his eyes and saw a figure standing in the distance. At first, I thought it was another hunter, due to the fog, but as I got closer, I realized it was something far more horrific. The creature was impossibly tall, at least 10 feet, with elongated limbs that seemed to stretch unnaturally. Its face was a grotesque blend of disfigured human features and a large mouth with small glowing eyes. Its mouth twisted into a nightmarish grin, revealing rows of sharp, jagged teeth. A chill ran down my spine, and I felt my heart pound in my chest. Rex barked furiously. I grabbed him and held his mouth closed, but it was too late. It took a slow, deliberate step towards us, its movements unnervingly fluid. As it moved, I noticed something even more horrifying. The ground around it was littered with the remains of a deer, its body torn apart as if by some monstrous force. The creature's hands were stained with blood, and it was clear it had been feasting on the poor animal. I raised my rifle, my hands trembling, and fired a shot. The bullet seemed to pass right through it, and the creature let out a bone-chilling scream that echoed through the forest. Panic set in and the creature began to run at an unbelievable speed. I dove into a crevice and hid until the creature had ran past me. I then threw a rock in the opposite direction and watched as the creature ran towards it. Then I sprinted towards my car with Rex following close behind. The creature pursued us, its footsteps unnaturally quick. I could feel its breath on my neck, and the fear was almost paralyzing. Branches clawed at my face and clothes as we tore through the underbrush, but I didn't dare look back. Just as I thought we were done for, we burst out of the woods and into a clearing. I glanced back and saw the creature standing at the edge of the trees, its glowing eyes locked onto mine. It let out another ear-splitting screech before melting back into the shadows. I collapsed to the ground, gasping for breath, and hugged Rex tightly, my mind reeling from the terror we had just experienced. We barely escaped with our lives, and to this day, I never venture into those woods again. The memory of that creature haunts my nightmares, and I can still hear its screech echoing in my mind, a constant reminder of the horror that lurks in the darkness.